Let's talk about how we can factor out the GCF. Well, first of all, what is the GCF? What does that stand for? It stands for the greatest common factor. So whenever we factor that out, we are going to write the expression as a product of its factors. So remember, factors, that's two numbers that multiply together to give us the number. So for example, if I was thinking of the factors of 6, what numbers multiply to give me 6? Well, 1 and 6, and also 2 and 3. So those four numbers would be the factors of 6, 1, 2, 3, and 6. Okay, so let's jump into three examples here. So number one, we have 4x minus 16. So look at my two numbers there. I have 4 and I have 16. So first of all, is 4 a factor of 16? Yes, it is, right? Because 4 times 4 is 16. So that means we can factor out the 4. So we're going to do a 4 on the outside of our parentheses. And now we're going to fill in the inside of the parentheses by asking ourselves, 4 times what? That's not a 0. 4 times what would give me 4x? Well, that would be x, right? And then 4 times what is 16? And that is 4. So now we have 4x minus 4. So in a previous video, we talked about the distributive property. Well, this video today with factoring is like undoing the distributive property. So we're taking our expression and we are now writing it as a product of its factors. And product means multiply, so that's why we have the parentheses there. So if I were to have seen this problem here and they told me to distribute, then I would do 4 times x and then 4 times negative 4, which would be minus 16. And notice how we got back to 4x minus 16, okay? So what we're doing in this video is essentially undoing the distributive property, okay? Now, number two, we have fractions, 3/4 x minus 3/2. So this one's a little bit tricky. Always try and start off by factoring out the coefficient of your variable. Sometimes that doesn't always work, but in this case, it will. So let's factor out a 3/4. Okay, now 3/4 times x would be 3/4 x. I'm going to keep that same sign in there with the negative, so minus. Now we need to think about 3/4 times what would be 6/2. Okay, well, if I take my, my second fraction, 3/2, think about what it would be if I had a denominator of 4. Why a denominator of 4? Well, because 3/4 has a denominator of 4, and if I multiply it by something, let's say I just multiply it by a whole number, then my denominator would still be 4, right? So what denominator of a 4 would be the same as 3/2? Well, that would be 6/4, right? Because if I reduce that, 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So let's multiply by 2, right? 3/4 times 2 would be 6/4, and that would reduce to 3/2. So that would be our factorization for number 2, 3/4 times x minus 2. All right, number 3 is a little bit different because if I try and factor out -8, we notice that 8 is not a factor of 12 because 12 we have 1, 12, 2, 6, 3, and 4. We didn't say 8, right? So we can't factor out -8, but now we're trying to think of what is a common factor of 8 and 12. Well, for 12 we said 1, 12, 2, 6, and 3, 4. Well, for 8 we would have 1, 8, but we said 8's not a factor, and 2, 4. Oh, we said 4 for both of them, right? So let's actually factor out a -4. Okay, so now -4 times what would be -8x? Well, that would be 2. And then -4 times what would be -12? That would be plus, excuse me, I need my x in here, 2x. And then this would be plus 3 because -4 times 3 would be minus 12. And that is how you can factor out the GCF.